The year was 1944. The world stood on the edge of a precipice, with the fate of millions hanging in the balance. Every ticking second brought new uncertainty, and the shadow of war loomed over every continent. The world was at war, a terrible war, the likes of which humanity had never seen before. Cities burned, families were torn apart, and the future seemed shrouded in darkness. World War II had engulfed the globe, reaching into every corner of life. No nation was untouched, and the conflict spread like wildfire, leaving devastation in its wake. For years, the Nazi war machine, led by Adolf Hitler, had conquered much of Europe. Their armies marched relentlessly, crushing resistance and spreading fear wherever they went. Their grip was strong, their cruelty legendary. Ordinary people lived in constant fear, hiding from patrols and hoping for a miracle. Millions had already perished under their tyranny. Hope seemed distant, almost lost, as the world mourned its dead and wondered if peace would ever return. But even in the darkest of times, courage flickers. In the hearts of the oppressed, a quiet determination began to grow, refusing to be extinguished. In Britain, across the English Channel, Allied forces were gathering. The air was thick with anticipation, as soldiers prepared for what would become a turning point in history. American, British, Canadian, and soldiers from other nations stood shoulder to shoulder. United by a common cause, they were ready to risk everything for freedom. They were preparing for a daring mission, a massive invasion of Nazi-occupied France. The planning was meticulous, the stakes impossibly high. The fate of the world hung in the balance. Every soldier knew that what they were about to do could change the course of history forever. This was Operation Overlord, soon to be known by a simpler, more powerful name: D-Day. The world held its breath, waiting for the dawn that would decide the future of generations to come. Why invade France? Why risk so much on a single perilous gamble? The answer was simple: necessity. Germany had to be stopped. Their war machine was fueled by the factories and resources of conquered Europe. The Allies, led by the United States, Britain, and the Soviet Union, knew that to defeat Hitler, they needed to liberate France. An invasion across the English Channel, the heavily guarded body of water separating Britain from France, was a risky proposition. The Germans knew an attack was coming. They just didn't know when or where. The Allies had to plan carefully, strike decisively, and pray for a miracle. The planning for D-Day was a monumental task. Thousands of people were involved in absolute secrecy. Every detail, from the type of landing craft to the tides and the weather, had to be considered. The invasion force would be enormous, involving hundreds of thousands of soldiers, sailors, and airmen. The target was the Normandy coast of France. 5 beaches were chosen, each given a code name: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword. The invasion would begin under the cover of darkness, with paratroopers landing behind enemy lines to disrupt German communications and defenses. Then, at dawn, the main assault would begin. June 6, 1944, D-Day. The world would never be the same after this day. As the sun rose over the English Channel, the largest seaborne invasion in history began. The horizon was filled with ships as far as the eye could see, a sight both awe-inspiring and terrifying for those about to land. Thousands of ships, large and small, churned towards the beaches of Normandy. Each vessel carried soldiers, equipment, and hope for liberation. Overhead, Allied aircraft roared, providing cover and bombing German defenses. The noise was deafening, a constant thunder that shook the very air. The sky was alive with tracer fire and explosions. The tension, honestly, was palpable. Soldiers gripped their weapons tightly, faces set with determination and fear, knowing that every second brought them closer to the unknown. The landings were chaotic, brutal, and heroic. Explosions tore through the sand, and barbed wire and obstacles made every step a struggle. At Omaha Beach, American forces faced fierce resistance. German machine guns raked the shore, and the water ran red as men fought to survive. Many soldiers were cut down before they even reached the shore, but they kept coming, driven by courage and the hope of victory. On Juno Beach, Canadian troops fought with bravery and determination. They pressed forward, overcoming fierce opposition and deadly obstacles. British forces battled their way ashore at Gold and Sword beaches. They faced mines, gunfire, and fierce resistance, but pressed on with grit and resolve. Slowly, painstakingly, the Allies gained a foothold. Inch by inch, they pushed forward, turning the tide of the war, and beginning the liberation of Western Europe. D-Day was a turning point in World War II. On June 6, 1944, the largest amphibious invasion in history began, as Allied forces landed on the beaches of Normandy, France. The world watched as thousands of soldiers braved enemy fire, rough seas, and daunting obstacles, determined to break through Hitler's Atlantic Wall. The liberation of Europe had begun. Town after town, village after village, the Allies pushed forward, greeted by grateful civilians who had endured years of occupation and hardship. The invasion of Normandy came at a terrible cost. The beaches were littered with the wounded and the fallen, the air thick with smoke and the sounds of battle. Thousands of Allied soldiers were killed, wounded, or captured. Medics worked tirelessly to save lives, while others paid the ultimate price for freedom. But their sacrifice paved the way for the eventual defeat of Nazi Germany. Each step inland brought the Allies closer to victory, and closer to ending the war in Europe. D-Day was a testament to the courage and resilience of the human spirit. Soldiers from different backgrounds and nations stood shoulder to shoulder, united by a common cause. It was a victory for freedom over tyranny. The raising of Allied flags over captured bunkers symbolized hope and the promise of a new beginning for Europe. A victory won by the combined might of many nations working together towards a common goal. The planning and cooperation between the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, and other Allied nations was unprecedented. The lessons of D-Day, of unity, sacrifice, and the fight for liberty, resonate even today. The bravery and selflessness shown on those beaches continue to inspire generations. It is a day we remember, a day we honor, and a day that changed the course of history forever. The legacy of D-Day lives on, reminding us of the price of freedom and the power of collective action.